just crazy things, because I didn't have the capacity or the time to go out and get these things in that shorter period of time. God just sent them. Like the bread from heaven, the manna from heaven. And my gratitude for those days is always just overwhelming as I tell the story, because I feel like I'm just watching a movie, like God is just good.
So the luncheons, as you know, are the second Tuesday of every month here at Lone Star College. And we do not charge for meals, but if anybody feels led, we'd appreciate any donations. So there should be bowls on the table, and feel free to donate. We'd appreciate that. Our future speakers. So next month is the Pastors Appreciation Luncheon. We invite area pastors from Tomball and surrounding towns to come, and we feed them and honor them. And our friends, Lauren and the friends at Rosehill Christian School, pay for the pastors' luncheons. They've been doing that for many years, and we appreciate that so much. So if I could ask every one of you to talk to the pastors at your churches, tell them they'll be getting notices. Leanne has sent out save the date cards, and we'll send out email announcements. But please talk to your pastors and tell them all of them are invited, not just the senior pastor, but we'd love to have them come. And in November, we're going to have a really great session for our veterans program. We honor the veterans every November. That wall's coming down because we have, right now, Wesley Hunt and Morgan Luttrell are going to come and speak. And we hope there's a third one. I can't mention his name right now, but he's equally infamous and famous as the other two. So November's going to be a great time, but it's going to be RSVP only, because it'll be, this room will be full, and the other room behind us there. And then in December, the Concordia Lutheran Chancel Choir will come, and every year they come and put on a program, and they're amazing. So if you haven't heard it, you should come and hear them. January, our mayor, who can't be here today, was Lori Klein Quinn, and our city councilman, David Escobar, will be here to talk about Tomball and what's going on and what they have planned for us. And in February, Barry Hart, who's executive director at Team, will be here to speak. He spoke a couple years ago, and he's great. So we have some really good speakers coming up in the next few months. Today's sponsor is Colwell Companies. They can't be here today to talk about it, but I think everybody knows Colwell has some great developments going on. They're developing a really big 55-plus community right now, and they're just doing some great stuff. And Fred Caldwell's a personal friend. He's a great, great Christian, and his company is founded on God's principles. So support them any way you can. Okay, now we're here for one reason, not to listen to me, but to introduce Christin Morse. I'll do a quick introduction and get her up here. She grew up in a large family in rural Utah. She married and raised her 6 children in Logan, Utah. And then she moved here to Texas in 2011, where she found what, in her words, her true heart's land and people here. I can relate because I did too. It took me about 10 seconds to do that when I came here in '78. While living in the Woodlands, she and her husband met financial hardship, so she started a successful bread bakery from her front porch. I have to read it because I can't say it quickly. It's called Curly Chef's Porch Bakes. So that was a successful bakery. Then, following a divorce, she found herself the sole caretaker of her children. She sold her home, moved here to Tomball, and started a new bakery, which is here right now, Manna Bread from Heaven. It's a uniquely themed bistro cafe serving fresh coffee, breakfast, and lunch meals, breads, and pastries. And it regularly supplies 5 local coffee shops with their products. In 2019, she married Robert Morse, and they began a blended family together. And he teaches ROTC at Klein Collins High School. My pleasure to give you Christin Morse.
Thank you. I'm not going to hide. Can you hear me? I don't want to hide behind that because it's about as tall as I am. So nice to meet all of you today and to be here. Honestly, I don't know if there are very many familiar faces. I feel a little new to Tomball because I commute down into Tomball, and my business was located on North Point, kind of at the back of the shopping center, and because of the lack of exposure there, we relocated here to Old Town Tomball off of Commerce Street, and now I feel like the floodgates are opening and I'm meeting so many more people through the new location here. So I grew up in Monticello, Utah, little tiny town, 2,000 people, surrounded by Mormons, Mormon culture, Mormon everything. I geeked out. I loved being a Mormon. Little foreshadowing, I'm not a Mormon now. There was something that happened in my lifetime with that, but growing up in that culture and that environment, it was as if there's a problem in your life, if you're having a challenge or circumstance, things aren't great, then you need, oh good, then you need to work a little harder to earn those blessings. And so I was in a culture of where if you're having a problem in school, then go home and pray and ask God to help, but then get to work and do your homework a little bit better and be a little more honest, like be worthy of those blessings that you're asking for. So kind of clean up your act. I needed to clean up my act to be worthy of the blessings because there were promises with every blessing in the culture that I grew up with. So if you're not getting all those blessings, then you're getting between you and those promises that were promised. And so I grew up feeling like I really need to just be good. I need to be a good person. And I don't know why we have... Anyway, so that's how I grew up, and I just felt like I was taught that I was in the right church. It was the church, the one and only true church of God, and that through the priesthood power, through the revelations of Joseph Smith and the scriptures and everything, that I was in the right place, doing the right thing. And if I left, I wouldn't be in the right place, and I wouldn't be doing the right thing. So it was my goal, my job, my passion to be the best little Mormon girl I could be. So that's how I grew up. I met a gentleman named Brad. He had a similar mindset. We wanted to have a big family, go to church every Sunday, do all the extra things to find all the joy in life. And that's the dream that I set out into. And so my life looked probably relatively kind of boring compared to the way it does now. About 8 years ago, we moved. I'm going to back up a little bit. So in marriage, there were some very unique challenges. It wasn't long before in our marriage I got some bad news that he had an addiction. And this was even before the internet came out, and it was sexual in nature. And then when the internet came out, it got much worse. And so there were more frequent conversations that were difficult, and confessions, talks with the bishop. But my belief in Jesus was that these things can be overcome in marriage, and through faith, forgiveness, love, compassion, charity. So we continued, had 6 children. And I believe it was when I was pregnant with my 6th, and this is, by now we're finding ourselves, I grew up in Monticello, moved up to Logan, Utah, did some schooling, grew the family, all that. We found ourselves back in little town Monticello in a little trailer park, trying to make an investment with this trailer park and the land and the property that was looking to be about $200,000 a year, and it ended up being like a negative. And so he started just working per hour because that's when the housing market bottomed out, and we were just glad to have a job. So he's working per hour, and we're living in this little trailer, kind of like, how did this happen? And it was during that time I'm expecting, we're in just this old little trailer in a tiny town. The winter storms were coming and blowing and drifts up this high. I just collapsed. It had just been too much trying to repair my marriage, trying to repair his problem by some external way, like if we just keep the house cleaner, if we just read scriptures more, if we grew our faith, like how do we, because otherwise we loved our family, we loved our life, we loved our marriage, but it was my constant, like what can I do more towards getting that blessing that we keep begging God for, and that's how to remove this addiction so that we can finally have just the peace and the joy and breathe deeply in the abundance that God has for us. So what is it I'm doing that I can do just a little better to get finally to that point where my dreams can come true for me and my family? And there was just a day that I realized I just can't. There's nothing. I can't. I don't have it in me. And I can't live like this. I can't breathe like this one more minute. And so I just devoted that day to God because I didn't know how to wake up the next day. I just didn't know how to proceed. And so I fasted, prayed, just talked to God, said, I can't do my life. And I can't give my life to anyone. I couldn't think of anyone I trusted with my life that I could just hand it off to. No amount of counseling or bishops, whatever, could do better than me, except for God. And so I don't know how to describe this because I hadn't been taught how to give your life to Jesus or anything. All I can say is that I just felt like, God, you do it. Tell me what to do. I'd rather sit back in the servant's chair of my life than to try to lead out anymore because I'm just messing it up. The more I try, the worse it gets. And so I just sat back and said, how about you run my life now? And will it be fun? I hope it will be fun. But I don't care anymore. I just didn't want to do it anymore. I couldn't do it anymore. And so I'm just praying this prayer to God. And it was on a day that I was at my in-laws' house. They were gone, and I was just able to be in their kitchen canning peaches. And I was canning peaches. My kids were watching Narnia on the TV, and I was listening to it from the kitchen. And I heard these messages through Narnia. I knew the story, but this time it felt new. And the beginning being these children that were so confused and hurt and messed up and arguing and fighting, and they had nothing to live for. And then the process of there being a little bit of hope, a new world, a new place, promises made, a prophecy, what's this? And they're exploring, reaching out into this new world. And then there's evil. And then there are lies, there's deception. These things come in, but they're given the weapons, they're given hope, and then they're given the Savior through the lion Aslan. And then his sacrificial gift for Peter, one of the brothers, and the redemption. And just listening to that story through Narnia, it did something in my heart that I realized that maybe there's hope for my story too. And that maybe wandering into this world with new, blinking eyes going, I don't know where I am right now, but maybe there's something there for me too. And so I'm just listening, considering that maybe this story was meant for my heart today. And at the end of the story, there's a song there's a song that comes on by Alanis Morse called Wonderkind. And that song, I wouldn't say you would play it in church necessarily, but something about the messages in that song, Jesus was speaking to me saying, I've seen your pain. It's beautiful to me that he started, instead of saying, okay, I've got your life, let's go. You're going to start a bakery, you're going to move to Texas, it's going to get crazy, but it's going to be worth, he didn't jump ahead. He just paused for a moment with me, and he just spoke to my pain. And in this song, it talks about, I walk with disbelieving eyes into unseen places with terror and treachery all around me. It even talks about snow. I was in a very snowy place, a very cold place. And it was like he was singing over me and singing to me, saying, I see you, I see your pain, I see your burdens, I see what you've been through. And I just started weeping, just like you see me, I'm not gone, I'm here. And I was so grateful for that. And as I was sitting there, my kids were out playing, and I'm just sitting there crying, listening to this song. And by the end, it was encouragement. It said, I'm a Joan of Arc. I'm these things, again, I wouldn't sing them in church, but he spoke to me there's promises here now. There's something ahead that you can get excited about. So yes, it will be fun. It will be exciting, and it's something that you will not regret handing your life off and sitting back and letting me take this. He just spoke to me through this very worldly song. And I just was sitting there going, is this really happening? And then I just continued to pray and talk to him. And in my mind's eye, I saw myself actually being born as a baby. And something about that was surprising, why am I seeing this? But I realized that the day that I was born, I was no different, no less his today than I was on that day where he had created me. And that because it was really all just about, my life was only about me and him, that this was something we could do together. And so that night I saw all the stars, I saw his glory. And honestly, I wasn't really a stargazer before that. I thought, sci-fi geeky guys love the stars, but for me, I'm just they're cool. But that night, they were a lot more than cool. They were real to me. And I realized that no human had ever touched any of this. That was God and how big he was. And that moment, I said, okay, sign me up. If I can just have a tiny percentage of what you've done, I'm super excited about this. So I handed off my heart that night, and the next day everything looked completely different. There's something about waking up in the morning. I had removed myself from the equation of life and of happiness without expectations anymore. I didn't know if our marriage was going to be okay. I didn't know if his addiction would be okay. But for some reason now it just didn't matter. What mattered was that I'm waking up and I'm like, hey God, what shoes am I wearing today? You know, how should we do our hair? It was just, who needs my help today? What can I do? Sign me up. I just felt like I was in line, ready to just love and serve whoever he brought into my life, my kids, my husband. And I remember kind of turning to my husband and saying, I don't know what happened to me last night, but I don't feel like, I don't know how to say this, I don't feel like I need you anymore. And he said, are you leaving me? I said, no, I'm actually more invested than before, but I don't feel like I have to have something from you by the end of the day or from anybody. I don't feel like I have to anything. Like I've kind of just disappeared. I just didn't know how to put words on this feeling that I had. And I said, but I can tell you can be excited because I love you more than I ever have before. I love my kids more than I ever have before. And I feel like I'm going to just do amazing things as a wife because I'm so excited to make dinner. I'm so excited to just do any of those menial things for a different reason now. Just something crazy happened last night. And that's all I could say. But that day was beautiful. It was completely different. It was like I had a new lens on my eyes. And the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And something that's not in the video, but he actually ended up getting a job in the Woodlands for a law firm, and it looked to be an amazing thing. We got a nice house, got out of that little trailer, and from there we continued to go to the Mormon church. But there was this moment, this day that the bishop came, and he challenged us to share our love for Jesus Christ with others. And I told God, whoever you send into my life tomorrow, I'm going to talk to them. I'm just going to be obnoxious and be like these Christians out there, the evangelical ones, and I'm going to say, I love Jesus, how about you? And so the next day I woke up and I remembered my promise, and I opened up my email, and there was a Facebook invitation from a guy, 26 years old, over in the bush of Kenya, wanting to be my friend on Facebook, and we had no friends in common. And I thought, that's really strange, he's gonna scam. So I went to go to delete, and I'm like, oh, I promised God anybody. Does God use Facebook? This is weird. So I went ahead and accepted, and I started chatting with this guy in the bush of Kenya. Turns out he was on a really old, cheap phone that they were just barely starting to get internet over there in the bush of Kenya. And he was just haphazardly looking for his friends. And one of his friends was Christina Franco. And my name was Christin Frankum Shumway at the time, and he just was like, and so I was on his list, and he friended me accidentally. But he comes from a tribe of people. They have elders, they walk with God, they pray, they fast for 3 days, they'll pray all night long with their church, and they're having revelations and miracles, and God is working and walking with them on the regular. I didn't know any of this at the time that I accepted his friendship request. So I thought he's a scammer, so I jumped straight into do you love Jesus and stuff, and if he didn't, I just was going to move on. Well, sure enough, we started sharing faith stories, comparisons, perspectives. It's its own long story I could tell about an hour for, and it's one of the most beautiful parts, I feel like, gifts in my life. But I was able to go over there and meet him and meet them, and there were crazy cool things that happened during my visit, including it rained for the first time. They had not seen rain for 9 months. And before going there, I asked God, am I really supposed to just go over to Africa? Because it was just so crazy. But once I submitted it, God just said, when you go to Kenya, it will rain. And sure enough, when I landed on there, the rains began. And they attributed that visit and the rain starting to what God was doing with us together. So that's one of the few, so many beautiful things happen there. But I just want to say it and share with you that he just started opening my eyes. He opened my eyes in Kenya so that I saw these people that walk with God, and these aren't Mormons. They're not tied to this idea I had that you have to work towards your joys. And just seeing them, and then he started showing me in the Bible stuff that I had never considered, where you die to yourself first. This isn't a matter of working to worthiness. This is more I'm unworthy, and Jesus is worthy, and I need to switch gears and lean into him. And I'm like, kids, gather around. Let's talk about this verse. And where did this come from? We're just talking about these things. And I'm the scales were falling from my eyes, and I was having a new sight, new vision. At this time, My husband still had an addiction. There were problems. He lost his job. We were unemployed, really needing some money for this family. And so I started the Curly Chef's Porch Bakes. So I love to bake bread. I always did. Just thought maybe this could make some money. There's not a lot of homemade bread out there anymore, it seems like. And so I thought, I'll offer this to the community. So I started with a little honor system. I got a little bread rack, some envelopes they could put money in. They could just come and go in their bunny slippers, pick up the bread, and drop the money and go. And so after 18 months, I had over 500 people on my text list. And they were just so excited. I remember on a rainy Saturday, they're all showing up and lining out the door for the cinnamon rolls. And it was just super exciting, encouraging. But it sure wasn't paying the mortgage. And so it was just a little bit of spare change. So there was a certain day that I just asked God, should I close this bakery down, and kind of encourage my husband to go get that job. He has an MBA. So I let the Bible fall open. And the first verses that came in front of my eyes were Jesus Christ talking about the manna from heaven, the bread from heaven. So that's a good bakery verse. And I felt him to speak into my heart, like, this bakery is a gift that I've given to you for your family, but also for many others. And I'm like, okay, it doesn't make a lot of money, but okay. I turned some more pages over, and all of a sudden I'm reading about the sacrificial loaf of bread on Solomon's porch. And just all these bread verses kind of like, all right, God, you want me to keep doing the bakery, but I just don't understand. And I remember looking up at the trees, just being like, I'll do it, but I don't get how this is going to work. And I felt God saying, one more time, just open up that Bible one more time. And so it fell open to Malachi chapter 2. It talks about husbands not like dealing treacherously with their wives. I'm like, what treacherously means where you're not trustworthy. Like dangerously, it's like if you're on a treacherous road, it's because you're going to slide off the road. I'm like, what? I was receiving answers, and then there's this one, like, what does this mean? Well, what I didn't know, but God knew, is that a week previous, Brad's addiction had turned a corner, a very dark corner, and he ended up confessing to his bishop and then to me as some things that ended up putting him in prison for 40 years. I didn't know that at the time. God was helping me to prepare for that news that was going to come. And then the next few weeks, I got that confession. It crushed my heart. I didn't know how it was going to play out with the kids. CPS started pulling my kids out of school and talking to them, and things just started happening. I had to witness on the stand and hear the trial go forward and hear him being put away for 40 years. That time period was actually a year long, and I had to submit to the idea of divorce and being a single mom with 6 kids and selling my house, and then taking that and moving down to a tiny little apartment where my youngest son had to sleep in the closet of my room so that we could all 6 of us fit into the little apartment. And it was a big closet, like we could stick a mattress in there, and he loved it, actually, put stuff all over the walls. But I knew that this is not a normal life for a big family like ours, but I just knew that God wanted us there. It was right across the street from the bakery. His school was right next door. Like, God put so many people around me and all the situations that I needed in that crazy, tight little world when I was working 16-hour days just trying to get a business started. And you all know how starting a business is not a small thing. There's a lot of questions and a lot of conversations. But I'm just doing it, like, head down, like, hey, God, just what today? Just what today? And that message of just the manna from heaven, just like, do you have salt? Do you have flour? Do you have sugar? Just make bread. Just make bread today. And somebody would walk into my business and we would talk, and they would say, I have this opportunity, or I have, God brought the people into my path. Honestly, I did not initiate. The investor called me at the beginning when it was time to do a storefront. I'm like, how? Well, I got a random text from a friend at a recovery group. This was back before, right? When I was like, how do we do all this? I got a text, and she said, hey, and we went for a walk together about your stuff with your home and your business and your little bakery. I've got $90,000 I've been meaning to invest in something, and each time we keep trying, it just fails. But God stopped me in my tracks today and said it was meant for you and a bakery. And lo and behold, I made the phone call, and all of a sudden the funds are available. So I think that's maybe meant for you. What do you think? Do you want to start something? I'm like, okay, God, this was, the money wasn't there, but now it is. And then the contractor, I found a certain contractor that could do just what we needed. The location, it wasn't the place I planned on, but they knew another place that was the right place. Just people started calling me saying, I feel like I need to work for you. Oh, and my daughter needs a job too. I didn't even set out an ad for employees. They just came to me. I needed a vehicle, and my brother came into town on a business trip and said, hey, there's this car out there, it's got hail damage, but do you need some wheels? Because you can have it. Just crazy things, because I didn't have the capacity or the time to go out and get these things in that shorter period of time. God just sent them. Like the bread from heaven, the manna from heaven. And my gratitude for those days is always just overwhelming as I tell the story, because I feel like I'm just watching a movie. Like, God is just good. When you give him your life, you give him your choices, you give him all that, like, okay, God, what shoes am I wearing now today? He honors those things. So now that I'm a business owner and there's a lot of insecurities and what do I do next and all those decisions, I've got a library of how to be a good business owner and all the things, but really at the end of the day, what I've learned is just like, it's simple, but just trust God today with whatever decisions those are. And even for me immediately, I need this own lesson for myself. My manager just sent me a text yesterday saying, I'm getting a new job, I quit. And now I don't have a manager. And then my bread baker, my main bread baker, she has terminal cancer. And yesterday she said, I can't do it anymore. I can't show up today or anymore. So my main bread baker and my manager both are gone as of today. And as I'm coming to this fireside, I'm like, okay, I think I need this message more than anybody, so that I can trust God that everything's going to be all right. And as I was driving along, do any of you remember that game Frogger? Okay, it's a funny little analogy, but there's a little frog on one bank, and it has to get across a river. There's a river in one, and then on level 2, I think it's traffic, cars and things. But there's all this stuff between the frog and where it needs to get to on the other side of the bank, right? And all you can do is hop forward, boing, 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 to get to the other side. There's all this stuff going left and right. So I think level 1 is a river, and there's all these logs going this way and logs going that way, and there's snakes and all these things trying to jump and kill you, but you're supposed to get to the other side of the bank. And as I was driving just over here this morning, I thought, I think life is a bit like Frogger. I'm one of those analogy people, because literally, like, all these things are trying to kill you, but God uses those things to our advantage, like stepping stones to get to where you want to go, if you know when to jump. Not you knowing, he knows. So literally all you have to do is close your eyes, and he's like, jump, boing. Okay, now I'm going this way on this log, jump, boing. Now I'm going this way on this log, but I'm making progress to the other side. And I just thought, there's a left wing, there's the right wing, there's the Christian church is doing this, the Christian church is doing that. There's all these people telling us what to believe, what to say, what to feel, what to think, all the stuff on social media, all this information. It's like this river and streams pulling us left and right. But in our lives, whether it's our businesses, our families, our personal lives, struggles, choices, just jump now. And then don't jump ahead and wait and hold it, now jump. Jump, 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 and we'll reach the other side. So that's the message I wanted to share with you today. It's good for my heart, it's helping me, so that I know that we'll be okay if I jump at the time when it's time to jump. And I just wanted to share that with you too. So 15 minutes if you have any questions. I don't know if I've even given you a chance to think about any questions, but yeah, any questions?
So where is your restaurant now?
My restaurant is on Commerce Street. It's on Commerce and Cherry by Cisco Salsa. Yeah, it's kind of by Whistle Stop, Honor Society Coffee over there. Yeah, so it's only been there for 9 months.
What are your hours?
Hours are 8 to 4. Yep, and we're hoping to do dinner like weekends coming this winter time. So we've just been in the model of a restaurant now for about 8 months. Before it was just this tiny little bread bakery on North Point. But when we relocated to the Commerce Street location, now we're just like it's kind of nice. Lots of plants, lots of coffee, lots of bread and sandwiches and soups and things. So.
And do you rent the space for events?
We do rent the space for events, yeah. Especially we've got a little conference room inside. If you have like 8 to 12, 15 people, you want a quiet little place, we've got a nice wooden conference room that you can rent for $15 an hour. Just sit and pray, talk, discuss, or whatever you want to. And that's within the building. But if you want to rent the whole building, we've done that for weddings and baby things and all sorts of stuff. So you can rent the building, and we can either cater or you can just use the space. And that's after hours or like on Saturdays from 1 o'clock on if you want to do a Saturday afternoon event. So, yeah.
Okay, so this is like more on the spiritual
Sure.
side of things. So when your husband got put in jail and all these things were being taken from you,
Yeah.
and you felt hopeless, like how did you find hope in the midst of all that?
Thank you. Yeah, sometimes I leave really important things out of the, of the story. As a business owner, I guess I got into business so much because we're here. But yeah, I just, honestly, you're asking about the hope. I just felt like because God had done so many good things for me, I knew that He probably would continue doing that. You know, sometimes my faith was a little short. It was hard. It was difficult. We had some tears and things, but the more I handed to Him, the more beautiful He made it for me. I think the most encouraging thing was my trip to Africa. Just, it was so crazy getting there, and then it was so beautiful when I got there. And just a cherished memory I'll never forget. So just seeing, like, it just seems like whenever I hand things to God, He returns it back. My dreams are so much bigger than I could dream for myself. As far as my faith, I was a Mormon clear up into opening a business for like a year. And then I dated online and met an evangelical Christian. And he started showing me, and this is I'm glad you brought this up, because he's the one that showed me, like, he started opening up scriptures saying, you know what, you don't have to work towards salvation. It's been done. I'm like, I know. And he's like, no, I don't think you really know. Because you don't have to, like, show signs before He comes to you. When He comes to you, you give your life to Him, those signs come as a result. It's not, how did he put it? Keeping the commandments is not a requirement of salvation, it's a result from your saved heart. And I'm like, and just that grace, that salvation, I saw a new definition of Jesus that I'd never seen before. And I'm like, that's it. That's what happened when I was canning peaches. That's what I've been reading about in the Bible. That seems so real. And so all of a sudden God got way bigger and way closer to me when I saw this kind of God. And so that's when I started going to a Protestant church. And I went to like Mormon church and Protestant church for a while, and then I just was all in Protestant because I saw people worship for the first time in that church. I'd never seen worship before.